Everyone was taken aback when Perry Stone stepped onto stage. He revealed something previously unsaid about Joanie Lamb, and the crowd was struck into stunned silence. All eyes were on the screen. As a result of his words, the audience went silent, ripples over the religious community. Oh, was it treachery? Some sort of cover-up? A long-lost secret? You have to hear it to believe it. Whatever it was, as Perry Stone took a seat for, in what appeared to be merely another live video, the rapid escalation of the situation was unexpected. His customary serene demeanour was evident as he stood with his Bible open. However, a distinct impression emerged. People started seeing it right away. He took more time to pause. He eventually shouted her name, Joanie Lamb, and the room seemed to lose its oxygen as his eyes grew heavier. Many were hoping for little more than a passing reference or a brief anecdote. But Perry didn't stop at bringing up Joni. He revealed a hidden realm where no one had dared to speak openly. He kept his cool and refrained from becoming angry or raising his voice. The result was more like to a man releasing a weight that he had carried for a long time, rather than anything else. Compared to a heated tirade, his candor was much more impactful. Pressure, he said, concerning the potential corruption of ministry due to its association with wealth, power, and the media. He revealed that, as time went on, he discovered that the network had a preference for particular subjects. The implicit message was very clear. Even though no one had pressed him to speak, say what makes you happy, or remain completely silent. He implied that there were unseen conditions attached to Dyer's financial backing. Even while he refrained from making specific accusations, his message was clear. The person he was referring to was well known to all. In his statement, "It's about," who was command of the message. The comment section was absolutely ablaze. He was thanked by a few. That startled some people. Someone was denying it. Quickly, portions of the broadcast were edited and disseminated using TikTok, Instagram, Talk, and YouTube. Perry Stone's audience wasn't the only one watching now. His words weren't the only thing that caught the attention of the Christian media industry. He said it in a certain way. Simplicity, non-performance, and silence. Belief and profound melancholy. It was not aggressive. It was as if the man had finally had enough of trying to hide something he no longer believed in. The confessional quality of it all. According to him, the staff at Dyer are the best. However, love is elusive. Truth in the end. At that very moment, the atmosphere in all of these online spaces, from churches to podcasts to group chats, started to change. No, it was more than that. It was an appeal for honesty. What Perry's soothing, pained voice accomplished was something that shouting could never achieve. It parted the air of quiet. A state of complete anarchy ensued. For Perry, though, it was only the reality. Said aloud at last. The silence of Perry Stone's confession set off an instant and uncontrollable chain reaction. People were merely startled at first. It was unexpected for Perry, a well-respected figure in the Christian community, to make such a statement. Strange things began to happen, though, as the initial shock wore off. That stillness that had encircled Dyer for years all of a sudden split open. Initially, there were a handful of dispersed voices, those who had worked in the gleaming halls of the Daystar network in the past, including pastors, guests, and production crew, started commenting online. Subtle remarks such as, "He's telling the truth," were transmitted by some. Some people just wrote, "It's time." And initially, they weren't very spectacular exposés. They were careful, little truths spoken amid the din, but that was sufficient. The trickle turned into a cascade. An ex-producer has at last, after being silent, he penned a lengthy and deeply moving piece. He spoke of how, at one point, working at Dyer was like becoming a part of a greater purpose. We prayed, we stood together, and we were excited. Things started to change, though, he recalled, as time went on. Gatherings seemed less meaningful and more political, more concerned with keeping donations flowing and then with telling people what they needed to hear from God. Programming took a turn for the worse. It was his firm belief that all choices had to go through Joanie Lamb herself. Nothing made it on if she wasn't a fan of the host, the subject matter, or the overall vibe. This seemed like basic leadership at first. A trend emerged, though, As more and more people began to divulge, control was merely one aspect of the pattern. The theme was terror. Spiritual leaders with A, collaborative efforts with Dyer, were approached with caution during interviews and podcasts. Preaching optimistic, generous, and giving motivating words was something one pastor said he had been urged to do more often. No one had compelled him to do it, he claimed, but everyone understood. In the event that you bestowed feedback from them, you were able to secure more airtime. Without it, your portion would gradually disappear. Another preacher revealed that his program was subtly pulled from the airwaves after he preached a sermon concerning modesty and cautioning against the perils of coveting money. No, description has just departed. It was only when he turned around that he saw the message didn't go. He was suddenly struck dumb. Nothing had ever come down to just trust. She had her own vision, and everyone had to fit into it. When more people joined in, the tales began to sound eerily similar. Some evangelicals said they felt pressure to back certain initiatives, with the implication that they risked losing their influence if they didn't. A silent blacklist was one description. Regulars on Dyer were abruptly cut off from future invitations. Others recounted being subtly removed from consideration after raising concerns about donation techniques or seeking clarification on the use of specific monies. The most alarming aspect, however, was not limited to the filtering of texts. You guessed it, money. There were hints of questionable financial practices from former employees and insiders. A lady testified that she was instructed to handle bills for first-class airfare and five-star hotel stays, all of which were classified as ministry expenditures. She appeared to have shrugged it off at first, but the spending began to resemble a holiday more than mission work. She had been afraid to speak out until Perry's live stream, at which point she felt comfortable enough to do so. The allegations of coercion followed. A variety of sources. Someone went on record as saying that workers were instructed to prey on it and be silent whenever they voiced concerns. Before departing the network, several even said they were coerced into signing non-disclosure agreements. It wasn't merely about safeguarding Dyer, according to one anonymous former employee who commented online, but about to preserve her reputation. Unsettling details began to come together as these accounts surfaced. Not of one dramatic scandal, but of a system, a complex system based on manipulation of public perception, pressure, and devotion. Plus, Joni is right in the middle of it all. Lamb. If these accounts are to be believed, she was more than simply the show host. The content that was shown, the individuals given airtime, and the message that would reach millions of viewers were all decided by her. Support was extended to those who were part of her inner circle. Things would have changed for the worst if you weren't. The reliability of the witnesses added weight to the evidence. None of these individuals knew one another. They were employees for varying lengths of time, resided in different states, and performed varying functions. And yet, it was impossible to overlook the ways in which their narratives intersected. The internet went boom. The dots began to be connected by others. Reruns of past shows were located and seen again. Things that seemed harmless at the time, like Joni delicately guiding a visitor, or were now perceived differently when guiding a discussion. Was that control? One user queried, while another countered, she's just being a leader. The internet, ever the divide, took a stand. The opinions of the ex-insiders, however, were more boisterous than in the past. News outlets started to delve further. Timelines detailing when and who vanished from the network were released by bloggers. Many YouTubers, viewing it as a spiritual documentary, have posted videos dissecting every new element. Former show guests were suddenly facing challenging questions from viewers who followed them on social media. Oh, you didn't discover that? Why were you silent the whole time? Joni remained silent. What she didn't say merely made things worse. It proved to many people that the most unfortunate. She should have spoken up if there was nothing to conceal. Why weren't the claims being dealt with directly? Dyer, on the other hand, issued brief, nebulous denials of the rumors without offering any explanation. As a result, people dug even deeper. Reportedly, tensions were high inside the network. In an effort to avoid becoming entangled in the mayhem, a few staff decided to erase their social media accounts. Some others started contacting media behind the scenes, claiming that the public only had partial information, while discussing exhausting meetings, the need to uphold a certain image, and the dread of going against unspoken but known boundaries. One of the most audacious assertions followed. According to a preacher who had intimate ties to the network, Joni's influence went beyond Dyer. If you wanted to be on the radio, if they wanted access to that huge audience, they had to be politically and spiritually aligned, say the right things, support the right causes, openly stand with her, or they were out. Perry Stone was completely irrelevant at this stage. The door had been merely broken open by his live stream. The result was a deluge. Countless accounts, recollections, and realities that individuals had feared to share for many years gushed forth. The public face of Dyer, the one that was polished yet secretly powerful, was now being exposed for what it really was. A new phase was emerging, to disintegrate. It wasn't only Perry Stone's viewers who were taken aback by the conclusion of his live video. A change was sensed by the whole Christian community. People always remember that exact moment, that split second when a treasured object breaks and the sound reverberates for miles. Where it all began. Many were hesitant to trust it at first. They had seen Joanie Lamb on TV for a long time. She had comforted them in their time of grief and loss by praying with them and sharing their tears. She was an integral part of their path of enlightenment. Questions, challenging ones, sprung up out of nowhere. However, concerns transformed into doubts when further voices were raised. Soon after, skepticism transformed into grief. Anger followed, which no one had anticipated. A chorus of voices emerged. Regular viewers, moms, grandparents, and long-term donors were included, not only former personnel or clergy, people who put their faith in Dyer and entrusted him with both time and money. They began wondering, what did I sacrifice for? Was it my faith or was it all an act? A few expressed their thoughts on social media. Emails were sent to the network by others. Even more heartbreakingly, some sent letters written by hand, brimming with treachery and sorrow. I spent my last $100 on a telethon because I had faith in you, one woman commented. Now I am confused about what to believe. The devastation was extensive and swiftly spread, and even churches started to respond. Some subtly removed Dyer, entertainment from their Sunday services. Some made delicate, measured remarks regarding reassessing their relationships with the media. Nobody wanted to be caught in the storm, regardless of how much they respected Joni personally. They were aware of how quickly public opinion could change, and the majority of ministries couldn't afford to be caught. Amid a mounting scandal, to those on the outside looking in, it appeared as though people were abandoning her. However, for those on the inside looking in, it was a matter of survival. Then the contributors started going missing. Donations had always been. The generosity of viewers kept the lights on, the cameras moving, and the worldwide outreach growing. From major telethons to little monthly gifts, it was the lifeblood of Dyer. However, all of a sudden, the phones were quieter. The contact centers reported reduced activity. Donation drives were devoid of enthusiasm that had previously characterized them. Even long-time contributors were pulling back. Some had communicated their intention to cease contributing until Joni took a stand, while others remained silent. Just like that, they cut off funding for a network that needed consistent, reliable funding. This wasn't an issue with public relations. It was a crisis. Pressure was building behind the scenes, and employees at Dyer headquarters reported increasing anxiety. Long meetings with no clear direction led to some employees shutting down out of fear of saying the wrong thing, or being ordered not to speak publicly about the situation. Those who had formerly had a sense of belonging were no longer a part of. Programs started to mysteriously vanish. Production slowed. Guests canceled appearances. The excitement had vanished, replaced by stillness, perplexity, and terror. The once vibrant and daring energy of Daystar's programming began to wane as advertisers pulled their support. The show continued to air, but there was a noticeable change. The sparkle had disappeared, and the messages had become more subdued. Wary, audiences and news outlets took note. The network attempted to maintain its composure, but the outside world wasn't going away. Reporters, bloggers, and YouTubers all contributed to the conversation. Journalists followed every new development. Ex-employees gave interviews. Analysis, conspiracy theories, and real sadness flooded social media. Some defended Joni, claiming it was all falsehoods. Others saw it as the long-overdue truth. Regardless, the fallout was undeniable. It was happening. People weren't just losing faith in Joanie Lamb. They were beginning to lose faith in Christian media overall. What's happening at the places we haven't heard about yet? One reader asked, in response to the fact that this could happen at Dyer. The most terrifying aspect was that, for years, Dyer had stood for stability, purity, and trustworthiness. But with each new charge, that image was crumbling. Dyer wasn't an ordinary ministry. It was one of the world's largest Christian networks. Decline. The inquiries weren't limited to a single woman. They pertained to the entire system, and the statistics corroborated this. Audience size shrank. Former regular viewers stopped tuning in. Call volumes dropped. Ratings fell. What was once a flourishing media ministry now felt like it was on the brink of collapse as advertising deals grew more difficult to get. Budget cuts followed, and some workers were quietly let go. Others departed on their own, unable to keep coming up every day under the weight of uncertainty, exhausting herself. Reportedly, there was internal strife even within the leadership team. Some thought Joni should come clean and start restoring trust by speaking out completely and honestly. Others were afraid that if she admitted too much, everything would be destroyed. One executive was, "If we open the books now, it's over," he supposedly said. It was more about staying alive than about recovering, and Joni stayed fairly mute the whole time. It took weeks before she made an appearance on television. Later on, she avoided explicitly addressing the accusations, instead spoke about faith, being under assault, and trusting God during difficult times. This was sufficient for some, but not for others. The words didn't have the same impact. She lost the faith of her audience, and the warmth of her voice became cold and distant. Those who had previously sobbed during her broadcast now did so for a different reason, not because they were moved to tears, but because they were deceived. The effect on her bank account was harsh. Telethons that had previously raised millions were just breaking even. People were demanding answers, and some even wanted their money back. "We sent the money to the minister. This is hardly a luxury item." According to one note, it was all becoming too much to bear. The shattered trust, the damaged reputation, and the financial cost. The upper floor remained silent, though Joanie Lamb was already receiving more than just criticism at this stage. In the face of "Give way," she had gone from being a revered figure in homes all around the globe to being the center of controversy. And Dyer, which had been associated with faith and family before, was now associated with power struggles, anxiety, and money woes. This was about more than just a troubled ministry. An entire industry was staring into the mirror, and what they saw was impossible to turn off. Joanie Lamb remained silent as the din around her intensified with each passing hour. Everyone thought Perry Stone would issue a statement, release a video, or otherwise clarify things after he spoke out. Sprucing up, Joni, after all, had no fear of the spotlight. She had a long history of sharing personal, heartfelt messages with her audience during times of tragedy, joy, or faith. She possessed a steady, assured, and reassuring voice that many found calming. However, she remained mute when the occasion demanded it. For a while, people assumed she was only praying or consulted with her legal team. Some thought she was just waiting for things to calm down. Still, time went by with no concrete response. Assumptions of the worst happened as people started to wonder and worry. Her remaining silent did not shield her. The storm was not quelled. It turned out to be the storm. Actually, as Joni continued to remain silent, the speculation intensified and the number of inquiries increased. With her, being absent became a presence in and of itself, perceived in all online discussions, whether public or private, even those held in church lobbies. Joanie Lamb, who was formerly admired by many, has disappeared. A gaping hole had filled her absence, one that not even his fans, pastors, or viewers were aware of, which task to complete. To talk, they pleaded with her. A few begged, "Give us a straight scoop." An avid spectator shared a post on Facebook. "We will support you if you are forthright." Still others were less subtle. "We didn't need your silence as an answer after decades of being associated with security." The name Joni no longer connotes that. After a while, it stopped denoting power or leadership. At this point, it signified something different: hubris, arrogance, and possibly even remorse. Without words, people had to fill in the gaps of themselves, regardless of how true those things were. The actual harm was caused by that. It wasn't limited to her own, or failed to do. It was her refusal to confront the issue directly. No one could defend her, not even those who wanted to. She got more and more alone the longer she remained silent. Gradually, individuals started to recede, not because of animosity, but because of sadness. They wished they could have faith in her. Indeed, they did. However, having trust without answers becomes burdensome. Joni did speak at last. A few weeks down the road, she made an appearance on television. Her voice remained composed, her hair styled, and her makeup applied perfectly. Names were omitted by her. Neither Perry nor the claims were brought up by her. As far as spiritual, assault, about persevering through adversity, and about God's plan for a fresh beginning. There was a noticeable absence of her usual smile and scriptural quotations. The impact of the words had diminished. The feeling seemed far away. The power that individuals used to depend on now felt like a stage production. For a lot of people, that was the last straw, her chance to say something authentic. She hadn't actually fallen. The problem was that she was being dishonest about the fall. After that, progress was rapid. Religions subtly withdrew. A number of prominent Christians have taken down images of her from their websites. More schedules were used to pull dire programming. Guests and partners who were formerly proud to be on the network are now elusive. Joni wasn't the only one people were avoiding. Their purpose was self-defense. Joni, meanwhile, appeared on camera time and time again. Perseverance, faith, and breakthrough were the themes she continued to preach. However, communication had broken down. The long-lasting, profound connection she had established with her listeners had broken. People who used to get emotional during her messages either stopped tuning in or watched with a blank expression. She spoke as if her words were resonating with a woman they knew in the past. Disappointment became bitterness for some. For some, it became a source of sadness. A controversy was only one aspect of this. This was all about relying on her, remembering good times, seeing her on TV with coffee in the morning, knowing her prayers were heard, and hearing her voice during tough times. That included everything. Began to feel polluted. The most difficult thing was that Joni never really admitted it. She never once looked at the camera and apologized, admitted her mistake, or even tried to empathize with the viewer's suffering. Never took the time to address her people with the seriousness befitting a leader who owed them more than empty rhetoric. To the contrary, her evasion was palpable in her initial stillness and subsequent evasiveness. In the process of evasion, her legacy was being rewritten in real time. Once a symbol of elegance, the woman today